Hello, and welcome to Issues That Matter, the April 29th edition. And today we're going to be talking about a very important topic that people probably don't know that much about. And speaking for myself, I will say that I don't know that much about it. But we're going to be taking care of that today because we're going to have two people who are very knowledgeable about it. But before I introduce those two folks, I want to introduce Shelley Fleming Wigglesworth. Got it right.
Thank you for having me.
Shelley's going to be serving as my guest co-host today. And I love having guest co-hosts because it makes my job that much easier, even though I've probably already messed up enough times to count for a week. In any event, Shelley, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for serving as my co-host today.
You're welcome.
And we also have Catherine Ann Mossman,
Yes, perfect.
who's the executive with Hope Rising. I knew it. Who's with Stop Trafficking in Maine. And she's the executive, she's the
Director.
founder of it, and I suspect she's very much a driving force behind it. And we also have Diane Madden, who is the marketing director for St. Andre's Home. And today she's going to be talking about the relationship between St. Andre's Home and Hope Rising. So Diane, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Catherine, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Diane, how did you come about to work for St. Andre's Home and your affiliation with Hope Rising?
Well, I worked at a large health system here in Maine, Maine Health, for many, many years, and through that, I met networking has really been a key part of my life. And quite a while ago, I got involved with, I just started to sort of gravitate towards women's issues, whether they're health related or, in society. And I volunteered for about 8 years on a small nonprofit, Dress for Success. It was the Portland chapter at the time. And so I volunteered there for quite a while, and then actually was the president for 2 years of that organization. And, through that whole thing, the part that always resonates with me is trying to help other women that need help or need a leg up. I can remember times in my career over the course of my career that, sometimes, you take your direction from the women that you interface with, and sometimes, you learn things that you wouldn't do to other people, or it really resonates. And so that's a big part of who I am is really about helping people, and especially women and children. And so when I came to St. Andre Home to be their marketing and development director, it just resonated with me being able to work with women and needs and issues around women and children. And mostly when I was charged with starting to think about how to bring up a program about based on human trafficking, so that we could serve women in need. That was really that was just something that I really was looking forward to doing. And St. Andre Home had really wanted to do, the sisters, the Good Shepherd sisters started St. Andre Home many, many years ago in the early 40s. Their first work was up in Quebec, working with women in prisons. So many of the women, up there were prostitutes, and they just went in the prisons, administered to them, and tried to help them, once they were released. And so when they heard about the issue of human trafficking here, then it was actually in Maine. That's when they really wanted us to do something. And so we started writing for grants. We had a building that we knew that we could repurpose in the middle part of the state. It's actually in Penobscot County. We got grant funding from the Next Generation Foundation, and in June of 2015, almost a year ago, we opened the doors of Hope Rising, which is really Maine's first residential treatment program for survivors. I mean, up until now, there is no other residential treatment program. I mean, the only option for women who've been trafficked or are being trafficked to get away really are some of the safe houses that are in the different towns and cities around the state. But even going into a safe house really only buys somebody a couple of days, and most of the time they're back out on the streets. So we've served 8 women over the past year. Some really great success stories. We've helped several of them have transitioned back into the community. getting jobs. We help them get the education that they need and all of the substance abuse counseling and mental health counseling that they need when they first arrive. So it's a really, it's a real holistic approach to care for women who've been over 18 who've been trafficked. And you know, we're really proud of the model that we've developed. And the best part is that we're getting calls from all over the country now, people really interested in how our model is working, because we really call it a trauma informed, evidence-based approach to you know, all the needs of a woman who's been, you know, suffering severe PTSD and has been trafficked.
Do you think a lot of people know what the roots are for St. Andre's Home?
A lot of our biggest roots, you know, that's a good question. I think around the local Biddeford, you know, Sanford, Saco area, a lot of people do. Our original roots, you know, besides, you know, when the Good Shepherd Sisters came to Biddeford, their work was mostly, and they're most known for their group homes for, you know, pregnant women in the beginning, and then it sort of transitioned into homeless pregnant women. And up until this past January, we were still, you know, we still had that service in the community. We actually closed our last group home in January, mostly because it's just something that's really hard to fund. We were self-funding it, and we just really, it was the time to do that. You know, funding's a big issue for a lot of these social, you know, service things that we do at St. Andre, and Hope Rising, you know, it's not a cheap program to run. It's an expensive program to run. You know, grant funding goes so far, so we're, you know, only so far. So we're always fundraising, looking for donations, just trying to, you know, keep it going. You know, we're hoping to be eligible for some federal funding. I'm working on a grant right now for that, but it takes time, you know. So we're just plugging along.
Trust me, I know that because we,
Yeah.
working with the MS Society,
You know, yeah. You know, it's
a
almost
maelstrom of meetings and
Right.
hearings and all kinds of stuff.
Right, right. It's almost like, you know, the chicken or the egg. And so, you know, we realized early on that we just needed to go great guns to try to get the place open, and then just really work hard to keep it open, which is what we're trying to do. So,
Have you ever had a day up at the State House in the Hall of Flags?
yes, we've been up there. There is actually, Catherine was there with us back in, was it January or February?
so, yeah.
January is National Human Trafficking Month, and the past 2 years there's been a press conference up there with the governor's office and all of the different organizations that work in this on this issue. So it was very powerful, and Catherine did an amazing job speaking, and all of the different organizations were recognized, and you know, Amy Volk, Senator Amy Volk from Maine was there, and
Janet Mills.
Janet Mills was there, and yeah, we really felt, you know, I think the state really represented the issue very well that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, Catherine.
Uh-oh, hot seat.
I got the name right.
You did.
Catherine, what do you do? What is it? What's your focus? What takes up your days?
What takes up my days? Well, there's 3 things that I do. There's tons of organizations in Maine, like St. Andre's and Hope Rising and Mikasa and SARSM. There's a lot of organizations that are very proactive in these anti-sexual assault and anti-sex trafficking and human trafficking, domestic violence issues. So I wanted to play my part, my particular role. How can I help the tribe of people that are already in Maine doing these things? And for me, with sex trafficking being such a huge hot topic right now, I was able to take my history, my story of being sex trafficked myself, and be a voice for the other women and men, the other survivors of a sexual assault and sex trafficking, and be a voice for them and share my experience, strength, and hope with our Maine community about what's going on, particularly in Maine. So there's three things that I do, because the topic and the individual issues are so large that I just say, what can I be good at? And just be good, hopefully, be effective and good at those couple of things. So one of the things that I do is I volunteer at Long Creek Youth Development Center here in South Portland. And so I'm there once a week, and I work on the girls unit. And it's like a mentor group thing that I do there. Fill in however I can with the girls, and mostly offer them hope and share what worked for me. The tools that worked for me to get me out of my situation are just one of many tools, but I like to share with them what worked for me and maybe encourage them to find what would work for them to help them change their future. Their past doesn't necessarily have to define their future. And then I also work as a speaker. So I'm used to speak on various panels, talking to service providers and policymakers and educating the law enforcement and service providers of a particular town, like Rockland or Waterville. Some of those folks would all come together, and me and some other survivors and organizations would do just a talk, a conversation, a couple hours, and just sharing what's going on in the state, as well as the Rotary Club has just been, what an amazing organization they are. And they've invited me dozens of times now to speak all over the state of Maine to groups of business professionals who, like you, are interested in this topic. And I'm so touched by the fact that people care about this. This isn't puppies and rainbows. This is really disgusting, horrible. In my mind, Bob, and the minds of those that I respect, child sexual assault is the single worst, horrific issue we have as a humanity, as a global humanity. When you say the one thing, MS is awful, and cancer is awful, and they're awful, okay? And child sexual assault is like radiation poisoning. It is like radiation poisoning going out, and the fallout of that is huge. So my part that I play is trying to put the pieces together for the Maine community. I believe with every cell in my body that the Maine people, if they really knew what was going on, if they really understood the macrocosm, the full picture, when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle and you put those couple of pieces in and you go, oh, I get it.
If I may,
Sure.
if I may add, that's one of the reasons why we're having this show, because I do believe that inform people will take the information, they'll process it, and they'll say, I got to do what I can do.
Right.
Can you backtrack a little bit and tell us what worked for you? How you got into your situation, what worked for you then, and how that horrific past of being sex trafficked has given you the power, has worked to your advantage to help others, and how that has come full circle to you, or how it's become your mission and how it's helped you heal?
Oh, so you're asking the simple questions.
Yeah, just to give the viewers a background. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Okay.
Briefly, if you can just touch on those points.
So you want me to explain sort of how I started helping, how I got out and started helping?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just turned 52, and at 47, well, first, there is the abuse, and so the abuse was decades long, and then after that, the first time I was abused, I was, 6, 7 years old by the vice principal of my school. I'm happily married, mom and dad. I'm the eldest of 3 kids, but my folks were focused on a very sick member of our family. Their attention was averted. It was a perfect opportunity for an opportunistic pedophile, and that's what they're looking for, right? They don't care if you're voting for Trump or Hillary, and they don't care how much money, or if your parents are divorced, or if you're poor, or if you're rich. All a pedophile cares about is opportunity. And so, and I was talking to Bob earlier about walking into a room full of people and saying, who's the heterosexual? That there is no neon sign that says I'm heterosexual, and there's no neon sign that says I'm a pedophile. And pedophiles are in schools, and they are in religions, and they are in camps, and they are, they're everywhere People who are sexually attracted to children or sexually attracted to the same sex or sexually attracted to the opposite sex are everywhere. They've always been everywhere.
In reading your website, I think it was on your website that I gleaned the fact that Maine is, child abuse is rampant in Maine.
Child sexual abuse is everywhere. You know, it is everywhere. There is nowhere that it is not.
But in a matter of degrees.
In the matter of degrees, it is 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys across our nation. And there are people that are going to say, those numbers aren't right.
This is for sexually abused.
This is
right?
for
That
sexually
section, yeah.
abused children.
Yeah.
So, and people will say, well, it's really 1 in 10, or it's really 1. And I'll go back to the radiation poisoning. If you're living in a town and a power plant has had a nuclear radiation leak, and your cows have 3 heads, and your sheep have 6 legs, right? And everybody's focused in on, oh, we need to take care of the 3 heads and the 6 legs, and but no one's paying attention to, well, why did they get the 6 heads and the 3, you know, right? And do we really care if there was a 5% nuclear radiation leak or a 15% radiation leak? Mm-hmm. What we need to focus in on is the aftermath and what's happening. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing is true when a child is molested. When a child is sexually abused, there is a fallout. You just take a child who gets sexually abused, and by the way, stranger danger is important, but that is not where the odds are. The odds are a child is going to be sexually abused by someone that's in your inner circle. It's somebody that you already know. And as a society, it would be nice to hide behind the false sense of security, saying, well, I just need to prepare my children for stranger danger. When really we need to prepare our children for something happening within our inner circle. You know, our victims and our predators come out of our family unit, and we have to know this and have compassion about this.
Can you talk a little bit about the gut feelings
The
with
wormy
kids?
feeling?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sort of thing,
the wormy
which is, I think, key in maybe stopping something from progressing.
Well, I think that, you know, I listened to Russell Strand. He was amazing. He spoke at the Armory a year or so ago. Fabulous speaker. He mostly speaks all over the world to military about sexual assault. And I loved this sentence he said. He said, the good news is 95% of our civilian men are not pedophiles. The bad news is 5% are, and 5% do a hell of a lot of damage in their wake. You know, so we can't walk around being freaked out and thinking that everybody is a child molester. But you can't walk around thinking that somebody isn't. Mm-hmm. Oh, they're a priest, so they're not. Oh, they're a Boy Scout leader, so they're not. Oh, they're a teacher, so they're not. Oh, they're a family friend. Oh, they're a relative, right? Mm-hmm. So we just have to be aware. And one of the examples that I used was small children. How many times are we at an event? We have potlucks all the time here. And we have a small child, and someone wants to hug the beautiful baby. Oh, let me hug him or her. And the parent will like hand the child over. Oh, it's only Aunt Mary. It's fine here. Oh, it's only Uncle Fred. Go give Uncle Fred. Be kind, be good, be a good boy and hug him. And the child's like, no, right? That's a perfect opportunity to teach that child to honor their own inner knowing. Mm-hmm. There is something about that person that the child, it doesn't mean that's a bad person. Mm-hmm. It's just an opportunity to grow that skill in that child, mm-hmm. to honor, I don't really want to hug Uncle Fred or Aunt Mary right now.
Boundaries in general.
Boundaries in general. So right out of the gate, we teach the children, oh, you don't want to hug Uncle Fred? Well, how about teaching them an appropriate handshake? You know, you could do a fist bump, you can do a high five, or they can learn to make eye contact and say, nice to see you again, Uncle Fred. Nice to see you again, Aunt Mary. And that's it. And it's okay. It's okay, Johnny or Mary, that you don't want to hug them, but let's do something else instead. Not like, oh, there must be something wrong with Uncle Fred or Aunt Mary because my child doesn't. It's not indicative of that. It's just growing that skill and teaching that kid. So I had done my abuse for decades. And then there's the surviving. And any Vietnam vet that you guys had, Kevin, what was his name?
Welch. Yeah.
Kevin Welch. Kevin, if you're out there, way to go, man. Marine mom. My son is a Purple Heart vet. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
So, and
Thank you to him, for him.
Yeah,
I'm thanking you for him.
yeah. So there's this thing called surviving. I call it surviving the surviving. You know, and people will say, well, why does the domestic violence woman go back? Why does the, you know, the abused person go back? Why do they go back to drinking and drugging? Why do they whatever? Because it seems easier in the moment than the healing process. Having to heal and be present in your body with all of the post-traumatic and the episodes and the night terrors and not self-medicating yourself through that. I mean, it is a white knuckle, awful sort of thing you have to go through. And it takes a really, really, really long time, you know. But there is hope, because time is going to go by whether or not you work on it or you don't. And so it was awful and it took forever, but you know what? I wake up happy every day now. Every day that I am not crawling out of my own skin, wishing that God would just take me off this planet karma-free without going to hell or being reincarnated or whatever. Just, you know, where's that easy button? Catherine, would you like to go? Yes. You know, that feeling of, boy, it'd be really nice if a Mack truck just killed me and I wouldn't have to worry about any karma and I could die and get out of this. Feeling like I'm walking through mud every single day of my life, wondering when the next panic attack is going to come. That goes away. There's hope. That goes away. You know, you just have to do your work. So I had the abuse, I had done the surviving, I had become very successful in sales, I was making a 6-figure income, I was a national sales manager, I bought my dream house 5 feet off of a little pond in Maine that is just so cute. It took me 3 years to believe I actually owned it. I mean, I'd walk in and go, is this really mine? You know? Yeah. And it's been 9 years since I've had a panic attack, anxiety attack, or a post-traumatic stress disorder episode. And if you have those, that is just like, hallelujah. And then I was getting ready to turn 50. And all that, you know, the hormone stuff's happening and thinking about legacy and how can I give back. And, you know, I made it through and the other side. You know, I call it the dark forest. I went into the dark forest and made it out. And I had this yearning to go back into the dark forest and say, hey, this is a way. There's other ways, but here's the way I got out. Let me show you, let me share with you, because I don't want you to feel. I wanted to lessen the duration and severity of other people's suffering. Like I had the ability through God's grace to participate in some amazing healing techniques. And believe me, it's a smorgasbord of different therapies. There's no one sort of thing. You have to heal on so many different levels. And so I decided to volunteer at Long Creek. And when I went to Long Creek, I was seeing what happened to me in Biddeford and Saco. That's where I was trafficked in Portland, right?
That's exactly what I wanted to touch on here.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, I know you were trafficked right here in
yeah, I was
Biddeford.
trafficked here.
And so here we are now on a show that goes out to the Biddeford-Saco area.
Pike Street, do I need to say more?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are you know, there are probably very likely going to be sex trafficked children, women watching this show that could see this show, and it's right in the area. And look at you, you know, you rose above it, and you're here in a position to help them now.
Yeah.
What is your message to them if anyone's watching and they're in that position in the same town that you were in the 80s, and here they are in 2016 in that exact same spot you were in? What message would you give them to offer them hope or to any tool to try to move in a positive direction from where they are now?
Boy, there's so much to it.
I know.
I guess I would want them to know. I would want you to know that you're not alone. I would want you to know that what has happened to you doesn't mean your future. Your future does not have to be defined by what has happened to you in the past or what's happening to you right now. I would want you to know that although what we offer in the state of Maine isn't perfect, the resources aren't perfect, they're not 100%, but we do have some services available. Ask for help. Get out of the situation that you're at now, which is easy for me to say, right? I've been where you're at. I totally get it. It's not going to be easy. As a matter of fact, it's going to suck really bad out of the gate. but there is help available, and all you need to do is make a phone call, ask for help, and then it's going to get sticky. It's not going to be smooth. There's no one that's going to come and rescue you. You're going to have to rescue yourself. And so detaching from yourself and seeing yourself as that lovable little girl or boy that you were when you were a kid, nobody wakes up and says, gee, when I grow up, I want to have sex with a bunch of people for money and be beaten and raped and wonder where I'm going to sleep tonight and be full of shame when other normal people say, you know, what do you do for a living? That shame of everything that I did, there's a process out of that. So if you can kind of step back from that and say, okay, remember that little girl or boy that you were? That person needs you. That person needs you right now. And so you can be protective and loving of her even though you think that the you that you are right now isn't worth it. You're absolutely worth it because that little girl or boy still lives inside of you and is still waiting for you. It doesn't matter if you don't have a mommy and daddy or whoever to save you. You can save you. I saved me. I didn't have a mommy and daddy. There was no silver spoon. And if I can do it, you can do it. I didn't graduate. I don't have a high school diploma. I didn't go to junior high school. I never finished high school. Your education doesn't matter. The people around you, like who you do or don't have, doesn't matter. If you have you, you have everything you need to rescue you. I don't wish for you what you're going to have to go through to get out of it, and I wish that I could take that away, which is why I do all I do for the prevention, so that other children don't get to where you are right now. I don't wish for you the journey of healing that you're going to have to go through, and my heart breaks for you because it's going to be so hard. But, sorry.
No,
It's okay.
You do it.
But you can get through it. If I can get through it, you can get through it. And there are organizations like Hope Rising. The people of the state of Maine are confused, and they're trying to understand what's going on, and they're scurrying to get things in place. But you don't need those things in place to get out of where you're at now. Make a phone call. Call Hope Rising. Call Preble Street. Call Mi Casa. Call somebody, and get out of the situation that you're in now and do your hard work. Because you can be happy, you can have a great life and healthy relationships. Everything that you see on TV that you think is another world can be yours. You can do it for you, and I believe in you. I know you can do it, so do it.
Talk about your sex trafficking, Stops Trafficking Me. So maybe they could go to that website and know that you're the founder. Tell us more about your website and your foundation.
The website isn't...
Your foundation.
The website's not going to help you. It's just a website, right? What's going to help you is you. But my website is www.stoptraffickingme.org. Go to it, check it out. You know, I'm not a policymaker. I'm not a services provider. I'm just a voice. I was just like, what can I do to share? When I went to Long Creek, I'm seeing these kids. That's you guys, and I'm seeing me and what happened 35 years ago, that's still happening. And I got involved with the organizations like the York County Anti-Sex Trafficking Group and the Cumberland County Anti-Sex Trafficking. I learned about Mi Casa, I learned about SARSM and all these groups, and they're all actively trying to do something. They're all doing their part. And I was like, what can my part be? Well, again, I totally believe that the Maine people just don't know. Even the term sex trafficking, I mean, who in God's name came up with that term? I'm thinking like Russian brides, Asian nail people. I mean, traffic and sex, what is that, right? So being able to, what I'm good at is taking really complicated issues and making them easier to understand.
One of the things that I want to try and inform people about is that we're talking a lot about today, we talk about a lot about sex trafficking, child abuse and so forth. And that's no question about it, that is incredibly important.
Yep.
Incredibly important. What I think is also important is that when you look at human trafficking has a lot of different tentacles. out there. There's a lot of things going on that are taking advantage of people that cannot help themselves. We have labor that's being sold to people, sold to companies at high cost, where the person doing the labor is not getting a dime out of it. It's slavery. That's one of the other tentacles.
A Harvard professor was arrested for that. A Harvard professor had a domestic nanny, and they had her for like 20 years or something, and she was a slave. She couldn't leave, and Homeland Security arrested them, the husband and wife, sold their $1 million house, and gave the person who was enslaved a nice sum of money. She went to school to become a nurse. So there are lots of tentacles. Yep. I do want to, while I have time, I want to go to the Deering event, if that's okay. Yeah. So what can one person do? What can I do? Yep. So I do my work at Long Creek. It's a labor of love, and I don't even get me started on how amazing those people are, because they're not just people who've committed a crime, they're victims, which is almost always the case. And then I do my public speaking, but I thought, boy, if we could get the Maine communities involved in spreading the word. So I went to Deering High School. So Deering High School is the largest high school in the state of Maine, and it's the most diverse high school in the state of Maine. It's got 30 different nationalities represented at that one school. So I talked to Ira Waltz, the principal, who was just, man, he was very supportive. And I talked to Kathleen Harris, who's like the goddess of the drama department there. She's been there for like 18 years or something amazing. And I asked her if they'd be willing to do a trial with me. Could we use the school to do a theatrical production about child sexual assault and sex trafficking for the school and the community to educate them? And so Kathleen said that, she said that she had believed that the theater drama was to be used not only for entertainment, but also to educate the community as well and be a voice of change. So these kids volunteered. We've got like 15 volunteer students. They have written their own production. We gave them free range and said, if we were going to educate the community, how would you like to do that? So there's this block of time. You and I would call it study hall, but this is like, they call it WIN. And this is a block of time twice a week during the school day, where if a child is weak in a particular area, they can make an appointment to speak to that teacher, right? So these kids who volunteer have to not be in need in any other classes and get themselves. Now, most teenagers barely get themselves out of bed, right? These kids are like doing what they need to do to be present. During twice a week, they would meet on Tuesdays and Fridays for this 1 hour block, write the scripts, come up with the different production that they're going to do. They have done that. So on May 3rd at 6:30 p.m. at the Deering High School, free of charge, these kids are going to do like a 40-minute production. Some kids have done a song. Some kids have done a little theatrical play. Some kids have written poems. It is going to be epic what these kids have done. So they're going to do this performance at the Deering High School auditorium, followed by a panel discussion. So I've got Peter DiMaggio from Homeland Security, Christine Tebow, Assistant DA in Cumberland County. We have Beth Peavy from Long Creek, Girls Unit. We have Gia Drew from Equality Maine, and we have a survivor. So the kids will do their production, then we have this panel discussion to have a community conversation around this. We also have AV Technics, who's doing the sound and the video of the entire event, so that every high school in the state of Maine can have a copy of this video, yay, and be encouraged to do the same thing in their towns. So here's the thing. 40 years ago, I did this GEMS training that St. Andre's brought GEMS training to Orono. And one of the women said, what was domestic violence called 40 years ago? Marriage. 40 years ago, if your husband was beating the crap out of you and you called the police would come and say, what are you doing to make your husband mad? Knock it off. So you go to the police, or you go to your priest or your spiritual institution and say, hey, my husband is beating me up. And they would say, how about a weekend workshop for marriage, marriage enrichment seminar or something? We don't believe in divorce. We had people of color weren't even allowed to sit at the same table with us. Women weren't allowed to vote. And now here we are 40 years later. Oh, and if you were gay or bi, your family could send you to a sanitarium where you would get treated, electric shock or various things to try to cure you. Now we have gay pride, celebrations. We have a semi-black president. If you beat up your husband or wife, you're going to jail. Well, what happened 40 years ago to where we are now? A cultural change. A cultural change. How did that happen? We started talking about it, which is why I'm so grateful, Bob, for the opportunity to talk about this. Thank you. Thank you. So this, being able to have this opportunity and go into these different high schools and create that change through talking about it. This is awful. This whole thing is awful. But if we hide behind that it's not going to happen to my child, that mentality isn't going to get us where we need to go. I believe when the people in Maine really know what's going on, they're going to rally. And we just don't know what it is, what it looks like, what to do about it, what services are available. And this is a big step. And I hope every high school in the state of Maine will see this film and will be challenged to try to outdo us, right? and together, we're going to make that cultural shift in the state of Maine.
What would be, in the effort to build awareness, if a person were to observe something, observe a particular activity or action on the part of someone, what might be something that they would be looking for in order to get the sense, something's going on here that I
Right.
don't know about,
Right.
but I need to find out.
Right.
What do they do?
Shelley said it, the wormy feeling. The wormy feeling. So there was this woman that I really respect, and I loved it that she told me this story. She said, Catherine, she's in her 60s, and she said, years ago, my family got together to go to my mom's house for Sunday dinner, right? We all do that, you get together for Sunday dinners. The grown-ups were talking about how her adult brother had remarried, and he had a 14-year-old stepdaughter. And that he was going camping alone with the stepdaughter. He was going into the bedroom alone with the stepdaughter. They seemed to have a special relationship, and that was causing a wormy feeling that something's not, I just can't put my finger on it, but something's just not right feeling. But they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say. Do you really want to accuse your brother, right? What do you say? I'm just going to, it's in my head and I'm going to talk about it at this dinner thing, but you know what, I don't really want to do anything about it or say anything. Makes me what's happening is uncomfortable, but the thought of saying something is even more uncomfortable, so I'm just not going to. They arrested him for abusing this 14-year-old kid.
You're actually enabling if you
Exactly.
You're enabling
Good
it
point.
to happen.
Good point, Shelley. Good point. Absolutely. Children are. I am humbled by the loyalty of children. Mm-hmm. I had one girl call me up and she said she had a dysfunctional home, and so her aunt took her in. Her aunt had a fiance and two young girls. So my friend, this teenage girl, had been living there for just a couple of months. And the aunt's fiance tried to molest her. She called me and said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, you have to tell your aunt what happened." And she said, "My aunt has never been happier than she is right now. She has a home that she couldn't afford on her own, and they're happy. I'm just going to let him do what he wants. That way, my family can be okay." That's the way girls think. That's the way children think. Didn't matter what was happening to her as long as she could help her family, right? So I said, you need to tell her, because I know you're thinking that it's only you, because that's how they think. Mm-hmm. It's only me. I'm not so great. I'm not so important. Who cares what happens to me? And when I said to her, "What about your two cousins? Do you really think that he's going to stop just at you? What about protecting those two little girls that are living in that house. And so she did tell her aunt. Her aunt did believe her. The man was kicked out. The engagement was called off. She feels like she devastated the family. So she started drinking and drugging. She got kicked out of the house. She went to a halfway house. She failed out of that. I see the fallout, that nuclear radiation, and how many of you see that fallout? We see that troubled kid, but we don't know why they're a troubled kid, and we see it just follow them. So in our society, we see kids' truancy. We see kids who are violent. We see kids who are cutting. We see kids who are eating disorders. We see kids who are drinking and drugging, being incarcerated, dropping out of school. We see all these things, and we see them as individual things. But if we put each one in a box and we opened up that box and looked inside, we would see that 85% of each of those issues, those children have been sexually abused, right? There is our common theme. There is our genesis. And so I appreciate all of the services that deal with the individual things, and God bless Hope Rising and the nuns at St. Andre's. Stop having sex with your children and everybody else's children too. That's like Lorax. I just want to stand on a biggest tree in the state of Maine and say, stop having sex with kids. Stop. It is huge. And I get that predators have the sexual, there's two kinds of predators. There's one that is somebody doing to other people what was done to them. And we have room for treatment on that. But don't we already know that we can't change the sexual orientation of people? We can't change what they're sexually attracted to. Nor can we kill them all, nor do we have an island to put them on. So they're here to stay, and the effects are devastating. So let's be grown-ups and talk about what we can do to help support the people who are sexually attracted to children to not act out. I talked to one priest, and he said when he was arrested and convicted, he went to some place in Virginia, I don't know where he went, but they did art therapy, and they did talk therapy, and they did group therapy, and they did massage therapy. And I don't know what the science is on this, but they said that the oral castration didn't work as well as the massage therapy. Hey, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's rubbing the big toe of the predator. I don't care. Whatever it is that would decrease their urge to act out, let's have that conversation. Let's teach our children that a vagina is a vagina, a penis is a penis. I mean, one little girl was trying to disclose to her teacher she was calling her vagina a cupcake because that's what her uncomfortable mom told her that it was. She's trying to tell the teacher that somebody was trying to touch her cupcake, and the teacher thought she was having trouble sharing. You know, let's call vagina vagina, penis a penis. Let's teach boundaries. Let's be aware of our surroundings. Honor that wormy feeling. If something doesn't look right, say something. You can make anonymous phone calls. I get that from within the family unit, we don't want to tell on our uncles and brothers and aunts, and I get it. I was molested by my aunt. I was molested by my uncle. I get it. I get it. Yep. But we need to have compassionate zero tolerance. That's what I call it, compassionate zero tolerance. Let's work together as one tribe, because that's what we are. My child, your child is my child, and your child is my child. Our children belong to the tribe, and when we see something going awry and we get that wormy feeling, we must, or we are as bad as they are if we don't say something. My biggest goal, the thing that I want, if I could have a magic wand, I want to do very specific Maine PSAs that would, in a kind, effective way, use Maine people with a Maine message to teach them what it looks like and what happens when you call. Remember that conjunction, function.
Yep. Conjunction,
what's your
function?
Yeah, right? Schoolhouse Rock?
Yeah.
You know, so I would like to show, you see something, you have a funny feeling, you know, it's haunting you, like, yeah, something's not right. You pick up the phone, you dial a number. What number do you dial? Who answers? What happens after that? So we all understand We just need clarification about what it is, what it looks like, what the effects are, what do we have in place, what do we not have in place. You know what I mean? So that's that. I don't know how the money's going to come, but I know that the money's going to come, and I'm going to get those PSAs out there. There's 1.3 million people in the state of Maine, and I want to talk to every single one of them. I want every single person to know what's going on. So Deering High School, May 3rd, 6:30. I'm so nervous and excited because it's got great possibility, and together we're going to educate the state of Maine, and we're going to do something together and make that cultural change like happened before. We can do it again. Maine people are awesome. They just need to know what's going on.
Diane,
Yes.
you've been very quiet. From the discussion that you've heard and participated in, what would be your takeaway? What thing that you hear today that says this is critically important that people have to hear? If you want to say the whole thing, you can say the whole thing. You don't necessarily have to dissect it.
Well, there's statistics out there, Bob, that 80% of women who have been trafficked in the population that we serve at Hope Rising are former victims of sexual assault as a child. So there's I'm working more. My agency is working on the treatment side of things. We're helping women who've already been trafficked and trying to get them back to a happy place again. But so much needs to be done on the other side in prevention. And I think when I first heard Catherine speak a few years ago, that's what really grabbed me, because my work in healthcare had always been around women and children. And nobody had really ever talked about this issue in the healthcare community, really. It was sort of this thing that everybody knew was happening, but nobody ever really put a word to it. I mean, everybody talked about diseases in children and everything else that kids need, and vaccination and a good oral health, but no one ever talks about keeping the kids safe from predators. And so I think that it's a very under talked about issue, and there's just so much of a need to educate the public. And like Catherine said, it's not just a once and done thing where, oh, I talked to my kids about stranger danger, or oh yeah, I talked, it's just to check something off a list. I mean,
It's a constant ongoing
it's
conversation.
right.
Yeah.
And even the part when I first heard her mention the piece about the wormy feeling, I'm like, wow. I mean, I can remember being, being pushed towards some elderly person that I didn't want to hug when I was a kid, and remember how uncomfortable I
we
felt.
all have those feelings. I
Right?
think far back as 3 or 4, feeling just someone walking into the room and
Some old
know,
person.
something's not
Just
right.
knew, yeah. And so I was like, oh my word. And then I tried to think of all the times I might have done that to my own kids. And
me
it's like
too.
I learned, it's a real wake up call, But I would just add real quick that, it's important that people, and it might be something to add to your screen afterwards, is we can get that for you, the National Human Trafficking Hotline, because there's some great processes that have been put in place for if somebody just calls that line, then
The Polaris Project.
Polaris Project,
Yeah.
right. It will route right to the right state and to the people that
My
will help
takeaway
them.
on this is that we didn't have enough time.
Right.
Yes.
There was so much that we could cover,
Yeah.
so much important information out there that we should be trying
There's
to
a lot.
impart. Having said that, I will make the commitment that if we can put it together, if the timing can work out, I want to have a continuing series on this.
Yeah, I think
Thank you,
that's
Bob.
great.
Yeah,
I
that
want
would
to
be
I want to
great.
expose this and talk about this as much as we can possibly talk about it, because
Yeah.
it's incredibly important, and the tentacles reach throughout the fabric of our society
Yes.
Right.
here in Maine. And unless you talk about it, unless you expose it, it's never going to go away.
And it's a chain, generation after generation sometimes,
Yep.
and it's breaking the cycle.
Now, Shelley, what's your takeaway?
You can do something about this. You can make a difference, and if you want to help, you're not powerless, whether you were sex trafficked or abused or anything, or not. Even if you don't have anything, don't be uncomfortable talking about it. We need to talk about these uncomfortable things. We need to do it, and we can all help. And if we all help, imagine just saving one person, just making a difference in one person's life is worth the effort, just giving a little bit of what you can give. And it doesn't have to be monetary either.
Yep. And just, I don't think I said it before, but when I introduced you, I didn't mention that you did a 4-part series
On sex
on-
trafficking, yeah, in
on
Maine.
child
and that's
abuse
how
and
I
so
met
forth.
these lovely women.
Yep.
And I'm proud that I could be here with them too, with you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, you're going to be
you.
you're going to be part of the ongoing
Thank
series.
you. I will.
Okay. Just want to make sure, covering my bases.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Without people like Shelley doing the newspaper article, not one but four, and you being willing to have Diane and I here, you know, without the ability to get the word out, we're really stifled. So you being open and willing to have such a terrible topic and have this conversation, and to give me free rein to just
On
know.
topics-
going and to keep
on
getting the
topics
message
such
out
as
there.
this, I don't want it to stop here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even after the series of shows, I want to be able to do whatever I can to get that word out. And we talked about it. We touched on it a little bit in the green room.
I
develop
would
partnerships.
love to be
Yeah,
able.
yeah.
I'd love to be able to bring on some of the healing, some of the methodologies that I had used, EMDR for people with panic. A lot of people don't know what EMDR is. Bringing somebody here to show what EMDR does. The different organizations that offer, like we have the Child Advocacy Group now Center that's in Biddeford. The cool thing about the Child Advocacy Group is, in the old days, you know, a year ago, if a child was sexually abused, they would have to go they would have to report to the police, they would have to report to the judge, they would have to report to the lawyer, they would have to be re-traumatized over and over and over again. This thing called the Child Advocacy Center, almost every state has this now. It's one central place where a child will tell what happened to them in one place with a camera, and so that is recorded, and so that all the other players can watch the video versus having the child go through that over and over again.
amazing.
Isn't that amazing? So we just got that in Biddeford, which is just a terrific thing. So one person can make a difference.
Father Time is screaming at me, your time is running out.
Okay.
So I
We knew
think-
that. We tried to cram a lot in. We were all
There's a lot more to say.
I think I seriously have to start thinking about signing off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But I do want to sincerely thank you for appearing on the show today.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much.
It
Thank you.
has added to the quality of what we put out there. And I am firm in my commitment to having a series of shows. This is an incredibly important topic. And we haven't even scratched the surface.
No.
Right.
No.
That's right.
And I'm very sincerely grateful for you serving,
Thank you.
serving as a co-host today. And I look forward to working with you with the rest of the series.
Likewise.
And with that, I will sign off and just let you know that we are working on some other shows. I'm working with the University of New England to talk about one of the things going on at the university. We're going to have the Cancer Care Center of York County on to talk about some of the new things going on there. They were a part of a series of shows back some time ago.
And we'll be
They-
back.
Well,
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know how the calendar is going to work out, how I'm going to fitting everything in, but we'll get it in. And I want to express my special appreciation to Biddeford Public Access, to Steve Poulos, Steve Dodlin, who are great people to work with. And if they can put up with my foibles and missteps and mistakes, they've got hearts of gold. But Steve, don't take that too seriously. But seriously, no, my experiences here at this studio have been phenomenal, and I think we've done good things for the community.
Yay.
And with that, I want to thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
And folks, have a great remainder of the day, and stay tuned because we have more shows coming up. Have a great day, make it a safe one, and remember, simplify your life. It makes life so much easier. I know, because I am a simple person, and I can't deal with more than what my mind can handle at any one time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.